it's there to
Facebook.
be shadow bans.
Yeah.
Facebook's notorious for it, and they say they don't, but it's clear that people's content don't come up because it's been defiltered off the queue.
It's a very progressive company who's very anti-MAGA.
If you see a conservative post, you just get rid of it, right? Right.
I don't give a I'll delete it.
You gotta get the Cheeto out of office.
Wow.
Welcome to Fix Our Nation. I'm Peter Smith. Censorship is on my mind today. Censorship, big media, and what I see is definitely an intrusion into free speech. An interesting program for you today, folks. First, I'd like to introduce one of our panelists, Ted Wesson.
Hi, good afternoon, Peter. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for joining the program today, Ted. What is going on with free speech today? I've seen so much happen in this nation from January 6th up to today. I'm looking at these giant companies that are controlling media programs and formats, from Facebook and Twitter, everyone from Donald Trump to famous conservatives and people that are rather vocal that are just being cut out of the discussion. What's happening out there?
Well, it's not just Donald Trump. It started years ago with the fringe group, people like Alex Jones, like him or hate him. I know he said some controversial things in the past, but he was blocked off of YouTube and Facebook and all the other social medias almost simultaneously. That's what's really chilling and disturbing to me, is they act in a block, and it's almost like they got each other on speed dial.
Yes, it does seem that way. And whether you're conservative or liberal, it still gives me pause. Today it's conservatives, maybe tomorrow it's liberals, and maybe at some point in the future it's everyone who doesn't fit what wants to be talked about. Ted, I was reviewing an article. This was from the New York Times, and it had to do with Rupert Murdoch. And Rupert Murdoch, of course, is the chairman of the board of News Corp. And he was receiving an award, and he described what was going on today in the social media and censorship as an awful woke orthodoxy. And personally, I thought he hit the nail on the head.
Oh, he most certainly did. If you don't subscribe to the groupthink of whatever organization it is, their first thing is cancel you. The cancel culture is running rampant. Let's touch on something here. I know we've probably discussed this before, but look at like science. If you don't go along with that's the global warming, if you think people are responsible or not, doesn't matter. But if you're a scientist and you don't carry that water of humans are destroying the earth, you're thrown under the bus. And now it's starting to happen in the political spectrum as well. When has something like science become so hateful of dissenters? I thought that was the idea of science, was to always question, look for the answer. If we didn't follow that model, we'd still say the Earth was the center of the solar system. The power at the time, when Galileo and Copernicus were at the forefront of science, the church ran basically the state, the Roman Catholic Church, and they thought it heresy that the Earth wasn't the center of the universe, so they excommunicated them.
Ted, sometimes I wonder where we're at with free speech today. I had a chance to see this Yale video, and we're talking about young, bright, articulate people that obviously are getting into a prestigious university, and their feelings that they're talking about abolishing free speech as we know it. I found to be quite shocking. And I wonder if that's where we're going today. In fact, I think we should probably take a moment and just play this video.
Okay.
What we're calling for is to repeal the First Amendment.
I think this is fantastic.
Okay.
I absolutely agree.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Love it.
Thank you.
I'll sign it for you guys, man.
All right, I appreciate it.
I appreciate what you're trying to do.
I think the Constitution should be one big safe space, right? I mean, hurt people's feelings should not be protected speech.
Yeah, I totally agree with where you're at.
Because I think it's a living, breathing document, the Constitution.
Yeah.
It was literally not made in stone.
Yeah.
And the guys who wrote it, they were slave owners.
Yeah, that's true.
What do they know about how we live today? So we want to change it. Because you shouldn't be exposed to things you don't want to hear. You know, that's not right.
Wow,
You shouldn't be exposed to things you don't want to hear, Ted.
Wow. Well, you know what's incredible is Yale is the college of, I think, 5 U.S. presidents and something like 10 or 11 Supreme Court justices. These are people who are supposed to be the thinkers of our society. And
The leaders of tomorrow.
wow, we're in deep trouble if that's true. Hopefully Yale gets replaced by some other university.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, they're not the only ones that have caught my attention when I think about free speech. You may have heard of Project Veritas. And Project Veritas has actually had a few investigative journalistic pieces, if you want to call it that, as they go undercover. And they've also touched on this. And I think it might be a good idea to run that clip also now.
Okay.
MAGA or hashtag MAGA 2020.
It's political, stays up.
Yeah, but not for you.
Oh no.
Deleted.
Yeah.
So it's like Trump supporter stuff. But if it makes him look bad,
We have to take it down, but I leave it up.
you leave it up.
So if you see something that's not supposed to be up, it's probably me.
So you've deleted just hashtag MAGA?
Yeah.
Like the post gone?
It's common sense.
Who else is like you?
If someone wears a MAGA hat, I'm gonna delete it for terrorism.
Yeah.
Gonna delete them for terrorism. Just right there. You get MAGA, you're gone. And again, it doesn't matter if you're a conservative today, does it? I mean, it might be the liberals tomorrow. And like you said, hey, if I want to believe in flat earth, I should be able to, but apparently not.
No, apparently no anymore. You know, I think we've pretty much ascertained that the earth really isn't flat, but you know, I know there's still a society that perpetuates that, and more power to them. I don't follow that, but you know, oh well.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes,
Peter,
go ahead.
what really gets underneath my skin is there's nothing in the U.S. Constitution that says you're not to be annoyed by somebody else's speech or offended by their speech. You may not like it, but you can change the channel. You can walk away. You can put your headphones in and listen to your music extra loud if you want. But, you know, there's nothing that says what I say may not grate your nerves a little bit. And, you know, I think people are like a box of chocolates. You know, you never know what you're going to get. Some of them are full of nuts. Some of them have marshmallows inside. And, you know, that's what makes us great, is that we're all not like just like our neighbor candy.
Good point. Good point. You're right. We can always change the channel, but this idea of changing our Constitution to get rid of free speech by bright, intelligent, articulate young people, so it just surprises me. We've got another article.
Well, Peter, I just want to interject real quick. Just because somebody's quote unquote intelligent doesn't mean they're not stupid.
Okay, true that. Yes, Ted, this is really good talking points. And I've got one here that ties right in, and I want to bring this up. And this is a news article, and this is from the New York Times. And the New York Times is making reference to Senator Josh Hawley, Republican of Missouri, and an article that he was part of that was the front page of a New York Post article. And the name of the article was Time to Take a Stand Against the Muzzling of America. Well, anyway, after Senator Josh Hawley made this article, his publisher, Simon and Schuster, canceled his book deal, and several of his talking presentations that he was prepared to give were canceled. It seems like if you go against the narrative today, you're likely to really be punished, and not just punished, but financially hurt.
Yes, yes. It's back to, cancel culture, which I believe we should call it the cancer culture. It's destroying us. Uh, you know, Project Veritas has been removed from social media because of what they've reported. Uh, if you're not familiar with Project Veritas, go to their website and check it out. They have defended themselves against multiple lawsuits against very large media corporations and have been very successful in defending themselves. To my knowledge, I don't think they've ever lost a suit brought against them. So that speaks volumes to the truth that they're bringing forward.
Yes. And go ahead, please.
So, all these social media companies are just trying to perpetuate their monopolies on the truth. Let's look at like the Hunter Biden story. We're not going to really get into it a lot tonight about the Hunter Biden laptop, but basically, I think it was the Washington Post, I could be wrong on the newspaper, published an article delving into the evidence that was found in the laptop. People started sharing it on Twitter, and Twitter started blocking the post from appearing. Uh, a large newspaper like that's not going to print an article that's full of gross fallacies because they would be opening themselves up to major liability for being sued by Hunter Biden.
Yes, and that is something that is on my mind too, is about liability when people start to suffer financially, and are they going to have recourse about that? And I wanted to bring that up next. And that is, again, going back to who made these large social media companies the guardians of free speech. And I want to make reference to an article. This is an AP article, and it is talking about Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and how in Florida they are intensifying their battles with Facebook and Twitter when they announced new proposals recently reining in those platforms. And there's a quote in the article that says, over the years, these platforms have changed from neutral platforms that provide Americans with the freedom to speech to enforcers of the preferred media. And again, I'm a little bit stunned from the America I grew up in, where everyone had the right to have their opinions and say what they felt they wanted to say. If you didn't want to listen, you didn't have to. As you pointed out, you could simply change the channel. And it doesn't seem that's where we're at today.
No, it's a course of one-sidedness. And if you have a different opinion, you're shouted down perpetually.
Yeah.
These mega corporations, let's face it, some of these people that run these corporations were educated at the Yales and the Harvards and things. And, where are they learning this from? They must be learning this in the higher education.
Well, something has certainly happened that has changed our culture. I am still a little bit on the issue of how we got here, who made these entities the guardians of free speech, and people like Governor Ron DeSantis who are making proposals in the state of Florida to change things. But that brings up another interesting talking point. Do we want a whole bunch of individual states with this crazy mix-max of regulations across the U.S., or do we need something at a federal level that is protecting free speech? And I'd like you to talk. I know this is something you and I have shared off camera about how these social media companies are protected under federal law. So please.
Well, currently they're protected under the Section 230 statutes, which was designed to shield them from liability for things that were posted on their services by individuals. And now, in exchange for that, they weren't allowed to be the editors of the information. And, this is something that Donald Trump, while president, was trying to change. And I have a strong feeling that that's one of the reasons why he was canceled off of all the social medias, because he was pushing back hard against them to make them liable if they're editing content, deleting content from being spread. Again, you don't have to like it. Change the channel. Don't look at that page. There's lots of offensive things on the internet that I don't look at because there's so many good things to look at.
Well, to play devil's advocate for a moment, if I am a large social media giant, if I'm running Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, one could make the argument, well, I could do whatever I want. This is my company. If you don't like my company, you can go ahead and change your channel and listen to something else. This is an article, and it was regarding State Senator President Wilton Simpson. So again, we're back to Florida Congress. And he says there is not much we can do by one state, but we need Congress to act on a nationwide basis. And again, I'm wondering what's going to happen if we end up getting this crazy quilt of regulations running across the states instead of something being controlled at a federal level. So, Ted, playing devil's advocate, if I am the CEO of one of these large social media giants, can't I do what I want? I mean, I know you talked about Regulation 230 that gives some liability protection to these social media giants, but maybe I just don't want that heard on my social media outlet. In fact, I've got an article here, and this is an AP article taken on February 2nd, and it is referring to Amazon and how a federal judge said, you can go ahead and take Parler right off and you don't have to put it on. And the Facebook founder, Mark Zuckerberg, had this to say. He said, we're attempting to turn down the temperature and discourage divisive conversations and communities. He added that people don't want politics and fighting to take over their experiences on their services. How is he wrong?
Well, one of the fastest growing Facebook groups ever was taken down after just a number of days. It grew to millions of people in days. It was an anti-Biden group. We can talk ad nauseum about the election and some of the irregularities that we're seeing, but that's irregardless. Look back, George W. Bush, when he became elected, all the "Not My President" stickers. Look at all the anti-Trump signs, posters, and things that were spread around for 4 years while Mr. Trump was president. And they obviously didn't want to dial it back then. Now they just want to dial it back because they don't want any pushback from conservatives against a liberal administration. There's, they want to talk about dialing it back. Twitter allowed their service to be used ad nauseum by ISIS. They allowed their service to be used ad nauseum by the Antifa group in Portland, Oregon. To my knowledge, Portland, Oregon is still under nightly attacks by these people. They almost burnt down a federal courthouse. They've run multiple businesses out of Portland, Oregon, due to the destruction of the town. So Parler's a perfect example. Okay, you don't want us on Twitter, you don't want us on Instagram, you don't want us on Facebook. Fine, we'll start our own mousetrap. And that's not good enough either.
How's that? How so?
Well, I mean, Amazon took them down because partially,
and then a federal judge said Amazon was correct, and they didn't have to put them back up.
Well, I think that's still winding through the legal system. I haven't followed it real closely recently, but to my knowledge, that was Parler was attempting to force Amazon to reinstate them temporarily. While
yes, and this article was from a few weeks ago. Yes,
I could be wrong. Again, I haven't followed it lately, but to my knowledge, it was Parler was attempting to get a restraining order against Amazon from removing them. But
yes,
so again, all these companies are attempting to have it both ways. They don't want conservative voices or anti-establishment voices on their platforms. So when they move to their own platform, they pull the plug on that. I don't remember if it was Google, Apple, or Amazon said that because Google and Apple both deleted the app from their app markets at the same time that Amazon deleted their account from their web services. I forget which company said that they could come back if they did fact checking. I mean, like fact checking at Twitter, fact checking at Amazon, at YouTube. One of the channels I watch kind of regularly recently had a fact check claiming about the QAnon group, about it was a debunked right-wing conspiracy theory, dangerous, blah, blah, blah. And the gentleman that runs the channel actually made another video where he showed a screenshot of that warning label underneath his video and explaining that he's never subscribed to that theory, doesn't really know much about it. And the video that they put this warning under had zero to do about that. It was talking about something that happened like that day.
yes,
and that was only like a week ago.
yes.
So, if that's the fact checking, I don't want it. You can tell me the sky is green, but if I look outside and I see it's blue, I call that BS.
Yeah, here's the basic point, Ted. Are these large entities, these Facebooks of the world, are they the ones that should be doing the fact checking and deciding what's appropriate? Or should they just be a forum where free speech can occur? I mean, unless someone's yelling fire in the theater, of course, but that's not what we're talking about.
Right,
and that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Right, we're just having a civil discourse between ideologies. Nobody's calling for violence in the street unless you're talking about the left. The left has been very militant the past year in their actions. The conservatives have just been kind of the punching bag, and nobody's pushing for the type of violence that the left has been perpetuating from the conservative side that I know of. But again, if these social media companies want to have their immunity from civil liability from users, then they should zip their lip unless somebody's calling for specific violence.
And if they're not willing,
just
go ahead.
saying I want to call the cavalry doesn't mean I'm calling for a bunch of people on horses and rifles to show up. We use these type of terms regularly. I used to run a company, and when people would call me, they were having trouble. Sometimes I'd walk in the door and jokingly say the cavalry's arrived. Well, I was by myself with a satchel full of small tools. I didn't ride up on a horse with a rifle.
Now, the point is well taken, Ted. I do see us getting to a point where, as these issues become cases and they work their way through the courts, if these social media giants are really just clearing houses for information, which is a point a lot of people are making, and if they start censoring and removing people, there is going to be an opportunity for people to get redress and make their way through the courts and seek financial damages.
Well, unfortunately, under Section 230, you're not afforded that. There's several court cases you can look up through Wikipedia. Not that Wikipedia is always the truth teller of all things, but on the Wikipedia page where it discusses Section 230, it lists multiple cases where, going back to the AOL days, where they were shielded from civil liability for things that were posted by users. So Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all these have a very large shield in front of them from liability. Even if I said I want to come physically hurt you as a user, they're still basically immune from liability, even if I was serious about it. So
yes,
and I have zero faith that the current administration will do anything to rein this in, because they are reaping the rewards of this shield.
And if they're not going to rein this in, Ted, then I think this next article I want to make reference to certainly is timely. And this is again going back to Florida and what is being proposed in the Florida legislature. And it is this, that political candidates that were taken off of some of these social media firms could seek a fine of $100,000 each day the account of a statewide candidate is blocked, or $10,000 a day from election seekers. Now, again, this is just one state, and I keep thinking, gosh, we're going to have this patchwork quilt of various regulations across the country if it comes down to it. But I see that if I'm being financially hurt, and this is supposed to be an open forum, and I'm not yelling fire in the theater, I think that some of these folks that are being censored and hurt are going to be able to seek financial recourse. We're going to have to see how this plays out in the courts. But to me, there's a certain logic there.
Well, I personally feel that the federal government should be minimalistic in our lives. But at the same time, a patchwork legislation from state to state is a nightmare for any company to operate in. But again, if the federal government's not going to step in and fix this, then the states are going to do what they're going to do. And
yes,
not that I want to see that happen, but again, with the current administration, I see zero recourse from individuals or companies that are hurt like Parler.
Ted, we talked about making social media the fact checkers. And I asked, well, who has made them the fact checkers? It seems like we've just got some organic movement and the public is going along with it. Well, if Amazon or Facebook says we shouldn't be listening to this, well, you shouldn't be listening to it, public.
Well, unfortunately, they've decided to make themselves the purveyors of truth, which is a dangerous position to be in. You know, for years, we've all looked for the government censorship, and now it's snuck up behind us through social media. You know, so many people communicate this way now. It's very chilling on our society that only the radical left or people who don't espouse any ideological views are allowed on social media. But as soon as you say something that goes against what some employee at a subcontracting company like Cognizant feels is terrorism, they'll delete your post just because maybe you have an American flag hanging in your room in a picture.
Yes.
Saying you're a terrorist.
Yes.
And that's very chilling.
It is chilling, and we're going to have to see how all this plays out politically. And I really feel in the courts. I think we're going to see a lot more of this in the courts. Hey, Ted, thank you so much. This was a really important talking point. I want to thank you for being on the program
Peter.
tonight.
Thank you.
Folks, we really want to fix our nation, and we believe in social and political discourse. If you believe the same way, please like, subscribe, ring that bell, and spread the word about us. I'm Peter Smith for Fix Our Nation. Thanks, and we'll see you again next week. Have a great day, folks.